also feature people doing important work in our community to advance social justice. And last year, my spouse and I went to see the formerly incarcerated People's Performance Project in their first public performance, and it was so amazing. We went back the next night, even though it was storming. It was raining cats and dogs, and they let us in. It was sold out. And these are two of I don't know how many players. And Rebecca, who is my director, is also one of the people who co-directs this project. And Mark Kentward, back there,
He's the producer.
is a co-director. I don't know how many co-directors you all have. Four, and Wayne.
And Wayne Harris.
And so this is Mark McGoldrick, who spent many years as a public defender. He also is a solo performer, and I met all these people through Solo Performance World. So I want you to say just a few things about how you got involved with this project, what you're doing, and what it means to you to be able to tell these stories.
Sure.
So, Pearl, start.
Okay. Well, I heard about FIPPP in regards to prisoners in America. And it just piqued my interest. And what I said was, I wrote a message to the director in regards to letting him know that there's another narrative in regards with prisoners, and that is with family members who are on the outside waiting for all the time that's being done. And I wrote a letter to him, a brief one, and basically just saying that when our loved ones go to prison, we go to prison too. We do the time with them. And I have a son who did 10 years in prison. And one of the biggest things that one of the biggest fears he had, that I would leave him, that I wouldn't do the time with him. And he said, Mom, are you gonna stay with me? Because through those 10 years, his father didn't stay. And it was really difficult. He went to maximum security, and there's a lot of fighting in prison. And I would get stories, letters from him, and would visit. And he would do time with people who would never get out of prison. And I remember a man told me, I'm doing 3 life terms. I'm gonna watch your son, because I ain't getting out. I'll make sure that your son does. And it's just stories like that. They helped me get through the time with him. And he finally got out, and we did the parole, and he finally got off of parole. And those are some of the things I wanted people to know, that family members are affected with the loved ones that do go to prison. Now, let's be honest, a lot of them are guilty, and they gotta do their time. But it's a quiet solitude, if I may say. I don't wanna keep talking, but you're doing it by yourself a lot of times because you're embarrassed. Hey, my son's going to college. My son is in San Quentin, and my son is gonna be a professor or a doctor. I just want my son to get out of prison. So those are the things that family members deal with. I know I ramble a lot, but thank you so much.
She's one of the finest storytellers in the Bay Area. I can watch Pearl. Read the whole book. Mark, what got you into this project?
Yeah, and I do gotta say, Pearl, I mean, I love these, the practice sessions we have. Pearl is brilliant with these stories. I've been doing solo performance for a little over 20 years. I just retired from the Alameda County Public Defender's Office after 27 years. And before that, I was doing some public defense work in law school. So I'm just stepping out of actually the courtroom work, where thousands of clients of mine I've had, in almost 3 decades, and probably 500 went to prison, and, you know, the mothers I've dealt with, and the grandmothers, and usually it's the mothers and grandmothers.
Yes.
They're the ones who stay. But all the life stories and the clients who go away and come back, clients who never come back. So at the same time I was doing solo performance work, my job, my day gig was going to the courts and the triage of just the abattoir of injustice of poor people of color who mostly populate our carceral places. So, and the other directors, Mark Henworth and Rebecca Fisher, who started FIPPP along with Wayne Harris, those are the other directors. About a year ago, I was invited to come on board right when I was retiring. So for me, it's a perfect fit because I'm very familiar and I love the craft of solo performance, but the milieu of dealing with the carceral system and the lives that populate the lives that we flush into the prisons, the family members that are back, it's fantastic. It's fantastic, you know, the richness of humanity and the brilliance of the storytelling. It's very compelling stuff. And I hope we are helping to tell stories that are not the ones that make it in the public domain through, you know, major release movies and that kind of stuff. It's all these overlooked dramas here and there. It's terrifically exciting stuff. Yeah.
Some of the stories that we heard when we went are like being really sick and not getting adequate care in prison, and what that does to other prisoners who minister to their fellow prisoners. How do people find FIPPP?
It's FIPPP.org, so FIPPP.org. So we have the big annual public performance is in January. There's a couple performances, a couple weekends in January. The cycle is kind of an annual cycle that starts again for the performers and the directors late January or February. Then during the year, we're working with returning performers and new performers. Like what stories, what works you want to work on this year to workshop during the year to present again in January at the big public festival. So that's the big public target thing. During the year, we'll have maybe public workshops as the material's being developed. It's all at the Piano Fight in downtown Oakland. It's a little theater on Broadway, but find it through FIPPP.org. And there's ways of referring people, ways of donating, ways of knowing about, you can see clips, you can see material from previous performances.
How many folks are participating in FIPPP right now? The storytellers, you've got 4 directors and
Roughly 8.
Maybe probably.
yeah.
There's some that are onboarding. You know, we're always reaching out to try to find new people. At the same time, other than Pearl, all the other performers are formerly incarcerated people. So with that comes having to find work and keep work in people's lives. And for whatever period of time they were incarcerated, their wage earning years are on hold, you know, so performers get a stipend, so they're paid to participate. It's not a lot, so people are pursuing jobs and family and all the other, you know, presses of being in the free world. So we lose people that way, you know, life moves on, but we're bringing people on. Yeah, so about roughly 8. Mark, Rebecca?
Yeah, we got a workshop this weekend with a bunch of new people showing up.
Yeah.
And it's true, trying to recruit people, I've tried myself, you know, hey, there's a story that you can tell, and let people know. A lot of times, nah, I'm good. No. It's just that they don't want to relive it. A lot of times, oh no. When my son got out, the biggest fear is that when your child gets out of prison, are they going to be the same person? what's gonna happen to them? How are they gonna, on the outside? And so I reached out to some people and it was a little hard, Mark. It was a little hard.
Yeah, it is hard because you're trying to find people at the right part in their life too. We're always looking for younger performers,
Yes.
but there's also this reality where sometimes it takes some years before people are at a place where they're willing to look back, or they're being reflective about life and self-assessment, and just have the kind of the years and wisdom. Some of the younger folks are trying to go to school, they're trying to get their job, they got a baby, you know, so there's other art forms that might be, you know, speak more to young people. So there's a lot of reasons why it's not easy to recruit people, and life pulls them in other directions. Yeah.
It was my experience that every performer was excellent. They just told the most compelling stories, and you could really see how good kids who grow up in neighborhoods that have a lot of poverty, that have challenging circumstances, end in trouble. They're not bad kids. They just end up in trouble for a variety of circumstances. And you know that kids from upper middle class families who get into little trouble have exits that these kids don't, and it's so unfair. Are there questions in the audience? I see a hand up there.
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for this amazing.
Tell us who you are, because that matters.
Okay.
Everyone matters, but this person
Um,
has a very interesting story too.
My name is Ellen Barry. I am the founder and first director of legal services for prisoners with children. Next year we'll celebrate 45 years of working with prisoners and their children and families. I passed the baton in the early 2000s to two formerly incarcerated people, and Dorsey Nunn is now the executive director. And we also sponsored the growth of All of Us Are None, which is a national movement of formerly incarcerated men, women, and young people speaking in their own names. Also, of course, we see SE Justice Project, which is working with family members of prisoners, which is really inspiring. I wanted to ask you if you had women who were performing, and and also I was ED for a while with the restorative justice program going into San Quentin, and there was a wonderful project called the Artistic Ensemble, which was created by 15 Men at San Quentin, all of whom were extraordinary artists, musicians, actors. We even had a beautiful woodcrafter who saw himself as part of the team. And the ability to tell stories in depth, both inside and out, is, I think, some of the most healing and the most revolutionary work. So I just wanted to thank you all. I really think this is the way to reach people's hearts and minds about our brutal prison system and help us to change it. So.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah, and that speaks, Ellen, to the idea that reliving trauma.
Yeah.
You know, we've all been, we've all had life experiences, and often reflecting on them, writing about them, telling trusted people. It's not, I mean, if it's done poorly, people can be re-traumatized, but these are really also expiating and also getting witness to shit that happens to you, you know? A lot of these people suffer enormous indignity in isolation and in anonymity. And so for me anyways, I think owning a stage, people who are ignored and treated like crap, for them to own a stage and tell powerful stories, and they matter. This is good art. It's good storytelling. It's also for healing, to the extent that that's also a positive. And I know that Mark Kenward and Rebecca can speak more to this, but we have all kinds of relationships with some of the people out of San Quentin in the artistic communities, and some of the performers have come through those.
Yeah, legal services, she's not there anymore, but just clarifying
Just talking
about,
about
you, Alan.
I'm still working with prisoners and their families, but in somewhat different ways.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I started it in '78 when I was 3, so.
Yes, Mark.
And I want to get to your other question. Of the 8 performers we're working with right now, 2 of them are women who were incarcerated.
So Mark and Rebecca, there's something you'd like to add about the experience for you of doing this work?
I'm good. Pearl are representing nice.
Okay, all right. Other questions from the audience? Yes,
Fred. My name's Fred, and I was curious, maybe thinking of a particular example. You don't need to reveal things about who they are, but how you recruit or do people find out about this project, and how they may come with an idea of a story that they want to say, but maybe you guide them also in developing a story. And I'm just curious what that process might be like, maybe thinking of an actual example in general terms though.
Sure. A recent participant came to us through a personal connection that Mark Henward had from the old days growing up on the East Coast, and then he works now in San Francisco jail doing anti-violence and drug use work with inmates and people. But he'd been to the joint 20 years ago for some stuff he got into when he was using drugs and way out of control. And so through personal connection and outreach, he came to us. And so he has all kinds of life stories to tell. And so what do you want to talk about? What do you want to explore? And so with that person, his name is Scott, he tells these stories, so we don't have to, I don't think, be anonymous with them. But he tells all kinds of powerful stories about his childhood and life and what kind of first got him using dope, and then ended up on the East Coast where he was ripping and running. And then all of a sudden, you get on probation for this, and you violate probation, and all of a sudden, your head's spinning around because the next judge says you're violating probation, we're sending you to prison. And then you're in prison for the first time thinking, well, this wasn't the plan, you know? And the way California is, there's so many prisons, so geographically diverse, he finds himself with a bunch of racist thugs on the other side of the Sierras in Susanville, which, you know, to get there, you go through Reno, you know? You have to go through Nevada to get there. And so you talk to the folks and you figure out what's speaking to them, what has some fire, what would you like to explore? And then as they tell their stories, we just help bring them to life. Okay, I need to see that parole agent. Tell me about him. How does he carry himself? How does he look? Facial hair? You know, you say Latino. Is he dark-skinned Latino? Does he pass as white? Tell me about him. How does he, you know? So you're helping them bring characters to life. Well, walk around. Let's see him. How does he own space? Be your parole agent. Now you're the parole agent in the parole office. Do it, you know? So you're taking people and you're guiding them through creating stories and presenting them on stage, which is a little different than just, you know, telling someone a story. And then month after month, as we workshop these, you know, we get them on stage and they kill it. You know, very fun. It's really fun.
What the directors do is that they keep an open canvas for us. Okay, what do you guys want to talk about? What's happening right now? I didn't want to go this time. I was going through a lot with my older son who went to prison and the problems that he's having. And they talked me off the ledge. You know, Pearl, why don't you let's see if you can do this, because start opening up a cans of worms. But what's great about the directors, they let you kind of maneuver through this field of stories and see where we can kind of make something out of it.
You had a hand raised.
I did, yeah. I don't know if you guys have been around since the inception of FIPPP, but if you knew how did it start? How did it begin? I'm just interested in kind of that, I guess, story of how this even came to be. It seems like a very interesting project.
I'm gonna speak for Mr. Kenward, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I asked him that this week, because I knew about its existence, but I was doing other stuff. Both Mark and Rebecca are directors in their own right?
And performers.
Yeah. And they had people that they're directing who had been formerly incarcerated. And as they realized, more and more, they had more clients, they decided that, what about a separate group? And they applied for a Bay Area Performing Arts cash grant, get a little seed money, and then Mark and Rebecca particularly have been successful in bringing in some little seed money, some little grants, and it's been rolling along like that with very modest sums of money with which the performers can be stipended, so that it's not as much of a financial sacrifice for these people to participate in. Mark, Rebecca, how far off is that?
Yeah, I want to give Mark even more credit because when he was working with some, someone that was in, I knew you were going to speak for yourself, but you had someone who was really working with, and then either the performer that came to a series called Tell It on Tuesday, which is here, and he had this great story. He'd been in prison for 27 years or something, and he was just it was all so raw. I mean, it was so powerful. And so we were there's this whole world of stories that we had never thought about. Or we thought about it, but it just opened up. There's something here, right? Do you want to say anything else?
I would just add that I think it's really one of the many great things that has come out of this Bay Area Marsh solo performance community, because there's so many great stories coming through here. And between you and me, we've either worked with or presented 3 different people who have been incarcerated who wanted to tell their stories. So it really was a project that came to us. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I know it's been a long evening and we got a late start with the show. So I don't want to keep you too long, or any final thoughts you have about what you want to say about your work with FIPPP.
Come to the show.
Great stuff, yeah,
So
explore.
get on their mailing list. You have a mailing list, right?
That is, just go to FIPPP.org, FIPPP.org.
Well, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you to Pearl and Mark and Rebecca and Mark for the great work. I could recount every story I heard from those performers. They were just so good. I can't wait to see them again. If you can, send a contribution. And I realize, everybody's not in the same position, but it is such worthwhile work. So thank you all so much for being here.
Yeah,